2008 he accepted Islam. MashaAllah. Now, since accepting Islam, he's been very much involved with Talab al-Ilm and various scholars, and as well as he's been involved in the da'wah work. At the moment, he's working as a full-time lecturer and a da'i, as well as he's involved in teaching workshops that takes him all across the globe. He just came to us from York, where he's doing a 3-day workshop in a conference there, but he had to take a break just to come and do this lecture and meet his beloved brothers at Greenwich Islamic Center, and then he'll be going back to the York today. Brother Yusha Evans, he is the founder and co-founder of 2 Islamic television stations in North America, as well as he appears in quite a number of other stations throughout the world. He's also a psychology major, and he's also doing a lot of other Islamic sciences. Today we'll be speaking about the companion of Islam, who is known as the first ambassador of Islam, Musab ibn Umayr. He has an amazing story, which will be quite enticing to hear it from a very well-renowned speaker. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us in this evening. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Be here, as your dear Imam told you, my intent coming to the UK was to go to the Islamic Village Conference in York, but I decided I would only do one event in London, and that's because Brother Shahid Noor sent me an email and asked me to come, and I couldn't refuse him. Out of all the requests I got to come, I said I'm going to take one trip to London, and this is the trip that I'm deciding to take, inshaAllah. Even though it wasn't the easiest trip in the world to come all the way. I was in Bradford this morning, take a trip to Leeds, and another train to King's Cross, and the tube to London Bridge, and another train to Plumstead. Alhamdulillah, I'm quite familiar with UK, or I would be probably in somewhere else right now. But tonight's lecture is something that I've done a number of times, and it's something that's very near and dear to me. And it's the story of our beloved leader in da'wah after the Prophet ﷺ, Musab ibn Umayr, radiyallahu anhu wa arda. The last time I told this was a few months ago in Egypt, which I've been staying in Egypt for a while. I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay in the chaos, but inshallah we'll see. And it's quite unique, because Musab ibn Umayr fits into many platforms, and many examples of his life can be drawn out and used for different purposes. He fulfilled so many different roles that are beneficial for us today. It's beneficial for our youth, beneficial for our time, beneficial for our place and our situation and what we're going through and what we need to do and what we need to have to be successful. This is why I love the story of Musab ibn Umayr radiyallahu anhu. He's much more of a superhero than any comic book can put forward. Let me tell you that. Musab ibn Umayr was from one of the well-known tribes of Quraysh, Bani Abd al-Dar. And his mother, even though the Quraysh and the society of Mecca was not a good society for women to live in. I mean, baby girls were buried at birth. To be a woman was, not a good thing. Women were treated as property. They were bought and sold. They were used and abused and thrown away. But Musab ibn Umayr had a unique mother, Khunais bint Malik. His mother was a woman that even the Quraysh were afraid of. she had a awe about her, and she demanded a serious respect. She was very affluent within society, in a society where women were nothing. And both the mother and father of Musab ibn Umayr were wealthy. They were very wealthy people. And Musab ibn Umayr grew up in a life of luxury. I mean, lifestyles of the rich and famous. He had it all. He had wealth like no one could imagine. His mother and father spoiled him like no one could imagine. He used to be invited to the most exclusive meetings of Quraysh. Why? Because Musab ibn Umayr not only came from a very well-respected family, but he was gifted with unique beauty. He was one of the most handsome men of Quraysh. One of the most handsome men of Quraysh. He was also known as Musab ibn Khayr. Musab, the son of goods. Whenever the Quraysh would have meetings or would have gatherings or would have parties, Musab ibn Umayr was on the VIP list. Because if you bring Musab ibn Umayr, people will come. The women will come. Because Musab ibn Umayr was gifted with so much beauty, it was said that when he walked the streets of Mecca, women would line up in the streets. Just so that maybe he could catch a glimpse of them. And they would put their adornments out in front of him. And he used to smell so good, you could smell him coming from a long distance away. This was the Musab ibn Umayr of his youth, when he was just a teenage boy. When Musab ibn Umayr was a teenager, there was a man named Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam who received revelation, as he says, and was preaching a new message of Tawheed, to worship only Allah alone, not letting the Quraysh know about Allah, because they already knew about Allah. As Allah very well says in the Quran, if you ask them who sends down rain from the sky, they will say verily it is but Allah. But telling them to sing aloud Allah with Tawheed, with oneness, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And the rumors were flying at this time that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was a madman, he was a magician, he was a sorcerer, a liar, whatever they could come up with. And this was the thing that we know was going on during this time. The Prophet's uncle, Abu Lahab, used to follow the Prophet ﷺ to the marketplace, as is narrated by one of the companions. While the Prophet ﷺ was walking to the marketplace telling people to worship Allah alone, قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُونَ was his only message. And Abu Lahab would chase him through the markets, pelting him with stones and rocks, causing his legs and feet to bleed. Musab ibn Umayr heard these very rumors for himself. But there was something unique about Musab. Even though this time he was very young. We don't know for sure because a birth date for Musab has never been solidified, but he was in his teenage years, early teens. He heard these rumors going forward, but teenagers at that time were different than the teenagers today. Let me tell you something. He heard the rumors going forward, but Musab had been gifted by Allah with an intellect. So he said to himself that before making a judgment about this man based upon rumors, I will go and see him for myself. So he found out the Prophet ﷺ was teaching people and praying at a house known as Dar al-Arqam. And al-Arqam radiallahu anhu was allowing the Muslims to use his home as a gathering place. So Musab went one night and sat in the company of the most beautiful human being to ever walk the face of the earth. And he listened to his speech. And he listened to the book of Allah being recited. He heard the verses about Jannah. He heard the verses about Nar. And Musab knew this was not the speech of any human being. Very clearly knew this was not the speech of humans. And that the message coming forward was not a message of division. It was not a message of sorcery or magic or any of these things. He knew very clearly this was the truth. So in front of the Prophet ﷺ, he bore witness to that truth. And said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu annaka Rasulullah. I bear witness nothing has the right to be worshipped but Allah. And I bear witness you are indeed the Messenger of Allah. Now the Prophet ﷺ knew who Musab ibn Umayr was very clearly. There was not a person in Mecca who didn't know him. And he also knew who his mother was. And he knew his mother was one of his worst enemies. So he told Musab not to tell anyone, and especially don't tell your mother, because it will only cause you pain and hardship. And this was a time when the Muslims had no strength. So Musab hid it from everyone for a while, but he used to come every night and sit and listen to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Someone, because at this time there were many spies out amongst Mecca to find out who the Muslims are, because they kept it hidden and concealed. Someone saw the great pride of Quraysh, Musab ibn Umayr, going in and out of this house of Arqam, and went and told his mother, I think your son has become one of them. I think your son has become one of those who submit to the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Musab's mother called him to her home, and she confronted him and said, have you accepted the religion of Islam? And he didn't hide at that point. He spoke the truth. He said, yes, I have accepted the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is the truth. It is the truth from Allah. And he encouraged his mother to accept it. His mother became so infuriated that she chained him to the wall in her home. She bound him to the wall in her home and said, I will prevent you from being fooled by him anymore. Now, Musab's mother could chain him to the wall in her home, but she didn't realize that there was a stronger chain that had already been established in the heart of Musab ibn Umayr that attached him to Allah and His Messenger. And that was a chain that couldn't be broken and couldn't be chained up by anything in this life. So Musab stayed in that condition for a while, not losing his faith, until the Muslims had suffered so much that a group of them migrated to Abyssinia, to Habasha. And when Musab learned that there were Muslims who had left the struggles of Mecca to go freely practice their religion in Abyssinia, he fooled his mother and those who were keeping him captive in his home, and told them, okay, I'll give you what you want. I'll give you what you want, just let me go. And they let him go, and his first action was to flee. And he left that life of glitz and glam, just walked away from it, and left Mecca with nothing, and went to Abyssinia, fleeing with his deen to a land where he was a stranger and had nothing. He stayed there for a while until there was a rumor that came to Abyssinia that Mecca had accepted Islam. The city of Mecca has accepted Islam. And so Musab returned with some other Muslims to find out that not only had Mecca not accepted Islam, but it had gotten much, much worse. And when this time was happening, something other very special was happening. Musab met his mother, and his mother again tried to bring him back. And he warned his mother that by Allah, there's nothing there's going to keep me from Allah and His Messenger, and anyone you send in front of me to do so, I will kill them. I will put them down. And she realized his firmness and let him go. Something was happening at this time, and there was a group of people who had come to meet the Prophet ﷺ, and they had come before from a town known as Yathrib, where there were two warring factions who had been warring with each other for generations, and they were tired of it, and they were ready to see an end to this. And they had heard about a man in Mecca who was preaching Tawheed of Allah and bringing unity amongst people from all colors and tribes and factions. So they came to the Prophet ﷺ and gave him the pledge known as the Pledge of Aqaba. And after this pledge, they requested the Prophet ﷺ to come with them, but he said no, because it just wasn't his time. So they said, well then send someone with us to teach us the deen of Allah. Send someone with us that can teach us the religion of Allah. Now, at this time, Abu Bakr was a Muslim. Abu Bakr was a Muslim, the second of the two in the cave. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was a Muslim. Ali ibn Abi Talib was a Muslim. Some of the most eminent names that you will ever hear in Islamic history were Muslim, and they had been Muslim for a while. The Prophet ﷺ looked at his companions, and he called for Musab ibn Umayr and chose this teenage boy, this young man, barely had reached the age of puberty, had just entered into beginning to be a man. And he sent Musab ibn Umayr with him. He chose Musab ibn Umayr for a reason. The Prophet ﷺ did not choose things that were considered part of the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal just out of a choice at the back of his mind. He did it with reason and with dereliction. So Musab ibn Umayr, this young teenage boy, accompanied these new reverts to Islam, to Yathrib. A noble mission that Musab ibn Umayr even himself couldn't comprehend the greatness of what he was about to start. He couldn't. Musab had no way in his mind he could ever fathom what he was about to begin. And he went to Yathrib and began to call the people of Yathrib to Islam. And he had such beautiful character, such beautiful attributes about himself, such noble mannerism, that people began to enter Islam one by one by one by one. Now, there was a man in Medina, one of the leaders of these two warring factions. He was a man's man, by no slight measure of the word. His name was Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, radiallahu anhu. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was told by one of his friends, do you know that there is a young man, a kid, a boy, here from Mecca, causing mischief amongst the tribes and challenging the authority of us? And this man told Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, I would deal with it myself, but he is under the protection of my relative. I would deal with it myself, but he's under the protection of one of my relatives. So I have to respect the bonds of kinship. But you, being the leader of this great tribe, should deal with this situation. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was enraged. He got angry. He went to Musab ibn Umayr with a spear in his hand, ready to take care of this situation. And he threatened him, how dare you come to this town, this city, and cause this mischief amongst us? Either you leave, or I'll kill you myself. Now, Musab ibn Umayr just calmly looked at him and said, Ya Sa'd, are you not an intelligent man? Are you not an intelligent man? Are you not one of the great leaders of the tribes of this place? Look at the beautiful da'wah going forward, giving the man the respect of his position, that you're an intelligent man with wisdom, you're a leader. Shouldn't you at least listen to what I have to say? Then you can choose for yourself whether you like it or not. And if you like it, you can accept it. If not, I will keep it from you. I will free you from having to deal with it. So Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, look at the confidence of Musab ibn Umayr. So Sa'd put his spear in the ground and sat down. Said, okay, young man, tell me what you have to say. Musab ibn Umayr gave him the clear truth from Allah, recited to him from the book of Allah, told him about Jannah, about Nar, about his position in this life, why he was created, what he is here for, what will be his end, and what will be his final destination depending upon his choice now. And by the end of his conversation, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh could only say one thing. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. A few minutes with this boy, and one of the great leaders of Yathrib had entered into Islam. Now this same Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, let me step off for a side note for you, because Musab ibn Umayr's story is great, but the ramifications of his life are so meaningful we can't even begin to imagine it. Who is Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, this man who had just accepted Islam at his hands? Not only was he a great leader and an intelligent man, but he is the man who would end his life on one of the most noble manners that have ever been. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh ended his life as a martyr in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal after the battle of Khandaq. He was injured in some of the skirmishes that took place at Khandaq. And after this, Allah had routed the tribes that had gathered outside of Medina And this is a little bit on in the story, but as a side note, I want you to see the production and what is produced when we take the deen of Allah seriously. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was injured, and after the battle, the Prophet ﷺ immediately turned his attention to the tribe of Jews who had betrayed him and the covenant he made with them, and he surrounded their fortress. And they called for an arbitrator. Let us have an arbitrator between us and you. The Prophet ﷺ said, okay, take it. They said, we want Sa'd ibn Mu'adh because he's always been a friend to us. He's always been a friend to us. Send us Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. So they had to bring Sa'd ibn Mu'adh on a plank of wood because he was dying. And Sa'd ibn Mu'adh said, before I make a decision, you have to agree that you will accept my decision upon you. They said, of course, you've never been anything but just to us. And we all know what was the decision of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Because of their betrayal, that the men should be killed and the women taken, children taken captives. And when the Prophet ﷺ heard of this decision, he said, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh has made a decision that is with the decision of Allah and His Messenger. And when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was dying, the Prophet ﷺ came to his bedside. And when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh breathed his last breath, the Prophet ﷺ began to cry. And he said something about Sa'd ibn Mu'adh that gives him one of the most noble deaths that have ever been known. He said, today, the throne of Allah Azza wa Jal shook because of the death of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. That Allah loves Sa'd ibn Mu'adh so much that the throne of Ar-Rahman shook at the death of this man. And this man is the same product of the da'wah of a teenage boy named Musab ibn Umayr. Subhanallah. Now, when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh accepted Islam, there was another tribe on the other side that was warring. And we both know these tribes, the Aws with Khazraj. There was another man who was the leader of the other tribe. Anybody know his name? He was a Sa'd as well. Sa'd ibn Ubadah. Sa'd ibn Ubadah heard that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh accepted Islam. And he became a little bit angry. And he said to himself, if Sa'd ibn Mu'adh is good enough to be a Muslim, why am I not good enough to be a Muslim? So he went and sat with Musab ibn Umayr and accepted Islam as well. But became one of the great companions of the Prophet ﷺ. There was another young man who came to Musab ibn Umayr and accepted Islam on his hands. A man named Usayd ibn Khudayr, radiyallahu anhu. Usayd ibn Khudayr was a man whom the Prophet ﷺ said that his qira'ah, his recitation of the Quran was so beautiful that angels used to leave from the heavens to come sit next to him just to listen to him to recite it. And the companions used to compete with one another to sit next to him and listen to the Quran. This is some of the product of this teenage boy who entered into Yathrib and turned it into what would be known as Medina, the city of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, as all of this happening, and Sa'd ibn Mu'adh and Sa'd ibn Ubadah and some other nobles of Yathrib entered into Islam, the land became ripe for the Prophet ﷺ to come. So the Prophet ﷺ made his hijrah to Medina, beginning our entire calendar as we know it, where we date everything, and beginning an empire that would spread Tawheed to the entire known civilized world. It began right there in Medina. And it began because of the efforts of a young boy. A teenage boy named Musab ibn Umayr began something that would change the entire world as we know it forever. And write a golden age in history that no matter how many universities try to wipe it out, it's still blaring right in their faces. And a shining example for our youth, that if they want something to look up to, we have something to look up to that no one else has. We have people to look up to that did things that no NBA basketball star could do if you gave him 100 lives. That no rap artist could do if you gave him 50,000 years on this earth. We have those examples, but unfortunately, we don't put them forward clearly enough to our children. Now, Musab ibn Umayr lived a very luxurious life as a child. But after walking away, migrating to Abyssinia and then on to Yathrib, he walked away with nothing. And for the rest of his life, that's what he possessed. Nothing. He had nothing. He became one of the most miskeen of the companions. One day the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions in a circle, and Musab ibn Umayr came and sat down with them, and everyone started crying. Everyone started crying just because of how rough he looked. The same Musab ibn Umayr, the most beautiful and most handsome man in Mecca, was now riddled with infection because he didn't have things to take care of himself. He wore the worst of garments. He ate the harshest of foods. And he had just fallen apart physically. And the companions wept over this because they remember the same Musab ibn Umayr. They know from their childhood, the famous Musab ibn Umayr is now the most miskeen of us. But they didn't realize, maybe at that point, that real success can never be determined in this life. You can never truly be successful in this life. It will only be determined in the next. You can't. A successful guarantee in this life is only an honorable end to it. That's it. The last thing you do in this life will determine success or failure. We know this from the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, every action is dependent upon the last action. Musab ibn Umayr lived a noble life after walking away from that life of glitz and glamour. He became the first legislated da'i under the Prophet ﷺ, which has always been the most noble profession in this deen. Always has been the most noble profession in this deen. And our dear brother recited the verses that clearly lay it out during Salat al-Maghrib. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ الصَّالِحَاتِ وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَلَا تَكُنْ مِنكُمْ أُمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Very clear about this effort and this work. The most noble profession and the hardest one. Musab ibn Umayr went on to see the battles of Badr. He took place. He was there when the Muslims were given victory, when victory was clearly out of their reach, clearly beyond their reach. But their dedication to Allah Azza wa Jal was very well known on that day. Even though they were outnumbered more than how many? What were they outnumbered by?
3 to 1.
At least 3 to 1. At least 3 to 1. But from a person who is dedicated to Allah and His Messenger, 3 to 1 is in good odds on any day. Good odds on any day. Then the revenge battle came. The Battle of Uhud took place. Before the Battle of Uhud, the Prophet ﷺ, before any battle, the Prophet ﷺ would always give one person a dignified position. One person would get the most dignified position on that day. Who was that person? What position was that most dignified position? The one that held the flag. Because the person holding the flag was holding the banner of Tawheed. Was holding this banner of Tawheed for the world. That person was the most honorable person, and they were the one that was right in front. They were the one who had to really put their lives on the line. And he always gave it to someone special. And on this day, he called for that young man who he had known for so long, named Musab ibn Umayr, and gave him the flag. And his only job was, don't let this flag go. That's it. Don't let this flag hit the ground. And the battle took place, and we all know what happened. The Muslims gained a seeming victory until the archers left their position. And Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu came from behind that hill and routed the Muslims. And confusion took place. And people were spreading rumors that the Prophet ﷺ had been killed because someone actually smashed the face of the Prophet ﷺ, causing a huge gash in the side of his face and knocking out his teeth, and you could see through his cheek. And he hit the ground, so they said he's dead. And someone, everybody had some type of confusion that day. Some Muslims just sat down. Some ran. Some didn't know what was going on. Someone came to Musab ibn Umayr, still standing at the front, still holding his flag. still doing his job, and said to him, Ya Musab, what are you doing? Don't you know the Prophet ﷺ has been killed? Musab was still barely out of puberty at this time. Still a young man by any standard, of any means, still a boy. Musab's response was clearly, if he is Muhammad, he said clearly to this man, Muhammad is nothing but a messenger. The messengers have died before him. This was his statement, very clearly from his heart. Muhammad is nothing but a messenger. The messengers have passed away before him. If he dies or is killed, will you then turn back on your heels? And then someone said, no, the Prophet is alive. He's still here fighting with us. So Musab ibn Umayr started to try to draw attention to himself, because he himself was similar disposition to the Prophet ﷺ. He was the same height, build, complexion, and wearing the armor. You couldn't tell who was who. So he started to convince people to come and attack him, make himself look like the Prophet ﷺ, so that people would purposely fight him. And someone came and took off the hand that was holding the flag, and the flag hit the ground. Now, for most of us, if not all of us, if we lose a hand that was supposed to be holding the flag, we probably will bow out right there. I've done my job. I gave an arm for the sake of Allah. Alhamdulillah, I'm done. That's it. I'm going to go lick my wounds and find some shelter. But Musab ibn Umayr responded by saying, Muhammad is nothing but a messenger. The messengers have passed away before him. He reached down and picked up the flag with the other hand and started to attract more attention to himself, telling people, fight with me. You want to kill Muhammad, then fight me, kill me. And someone came and took off the other hand, and the flag hit the ground again. Now maybe there's a few diehards among us that if we lost one arm, we would pick it up. I got another good one. But if we lost both arms, and our job was to hold the flag, I think you've done enough. Yeah, Ikhwan, I don't think Allah would fault any of us for turning around at that time. Because that's it. What do I have? How am I going to fight? I have no arms. I can't pick up a sword. I can't pick up the flag. I can't do anything. But Musab knew that he had made an oath to Allah and His Messenger. And that oath was until death. So he bent down and took the two bleeding, gushing, bloody stubs, scooped the flag up, held it against his chest, and began calling attention to himself again, saying that Muhammad is nothing but a messenger, and the messengers have passed away before him. And finally someone came and stabbed him through and through with a spear, and he hit the ground and gave everything till his last breath for the sake of Allah and this deed. He didn't die to be known as a hero. He didn't die so that his name would be written in history. He didn't die for the spoils of war. He put his life on the line for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, for the sake that Allah's name would be known on earth, that the book of Allah would never disappear from the face of this earth, and that Tawheed would be known far and wide. That's what he died for. And as he hit the ground and the battle continued on, the Quraysh started to mutilate the martyrs on the day of Uhud, stomping on them with the hooves of their horses until they were almost unrecognizable, cutting off their noses and ears and tearing out the liver of Hamza. We all know what happened on that day. After the battle took place, the Prophet ﷺ came down from the mountain of Uhud, because that little hill that, if any of you have been to Medina, that is so mistakenly taken as Uhud, is not Uhud. That's Archer's Hill. Uhud is that big huge thing behind it. When they came down from those mountains, they were looking to gather the martyrs of Uhud. But the Prophet ﷺ was looking for a few people himself. There was a few people he himself was specifically looking for. And one of them was Hamza. He wanted to know where Hamza was. He couldn't find Hamza. Where is Hamza? He wanted to know where Ja'far was. And he wanted to know where was Musab ibn Umayr. He was asking for these people. Have anybody seen these three people? And of course, we know what happened to all three of them. Hamza was killed and his side torn open and his liver chewed. Jafar was killed. And when they found Musab ibn Umayr, he had no arms. His face was smashed and trampled to he was almost unrecognizable, except for the fact there was only one way they recognized him. He still had the flag clenched between his teeth. He still had the flag between his teeth. This is how they knew this is Musab ibn Umayr. He didn't ever drop the flag. Never failed in his mission. Never gave up. And the Prophet ﷺ started to cry. And there is a famous companion, and this is recorded in Imam Bukhari narration of Khabab ibn Arat radiallahu anhu. He said something very beautiful one day about Musab ibn Umayr. He said, we made hijrah with Allah, but he made a hijrah for Allah with the Messenger of Allah. Therefore our reward became due from Allah and assured by Him. He said, but there are some of us who never got to see that reward in this life. And one of them was Musab ibn Umayr. And he mentioned him specifically. One of them was Musab ibn Umayr. On the day when he died, he left nothing but a piece of cloth. On the day he died, he possessed nothing except a piece of cloth to bury himself with. And that cloth, when they brought it, wasn't even enough to bury himself. It wasn't enough. Musab ibn Umayr did not even leave enough in this life to take him to the next life. So when they buried him, or when they wrapped him, they would wrap his head and his feet would stick out. So when they would wrap his feet, his head would stick out. So the Prophet ﷺ said, wrap his head and what sticks out, cover it with lemongrass, or type of grass that's like lemongrass. So they covered him and put him in the ground. And this companion said, and he quoted a very beautiful statement, that some of us, their fruit from Allah has ripened, and they are now collecting it in paradise. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he stood by Musab ibn Umayr, he recited something very beautiful from Surah Al-Ahzab. He said, that amongst the believers there are some men, صَادَقُوا, true, مَحَدَ اللَّهُ عليه. They are true with the oath they made with Allah. This is what he quoted on this day. He said, amongst the believers there are some men who have been true to their oath with Allah Azza wa Jal. And this defines the life of Musab ibn Umayr. A man who was true to his oath. He was true from day one to the statement of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And he lived every single moment of his life after that being true to that word. And he lived a life that was true to that word. Therefore Allah Azza wa Jal gave him the tawfiq of a noble death. Because a noble death does not come except but by the permission of Allah. He received a noble death, and even though maybe he did not receive any reward of anything in this life except the pleasure of the smile of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his face, the moment Allah Azza wa Jal took his soul, he received it all in full. The very moment his soul was taken from this life, it was transported into a green bird who flies around the throne of Allah Azza wa Jal and goes about Jannah wherever it wishes. The immediate reward in full came because of his dedication to Allah and His Messenger. Now, like I told you, the life of Musab has many beautiful examples that we can take from it. Not only was he a man who proved that this life meant nothing. This life meant nothing. We see people leading a life of glitz and glamour all the time and coming to the deen of Islam. But Musab ibn Umayr lived a life that they could never dream of. Rap stars of today couldn't dream of the type of life Musab ibn Umayr lived. And he walked away from it. He didn't walk away from it and become an immediate celebrity traveling all over the world giving lectures. He left it purely for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal and gave everything away and became an unknown in Abyssinia. Became someone who was barely even noticeable, recognizable, nothing. And then Allah Azza wa Jal transported him into being one of the most well-known names that we will ever be able to say. A person to whom we have to say Rabbi Allah and after. So he showed us how to put this life in its proper perspective. He lived both sides of the spectrum. The life of glamour and glitz and luxury to the life of nothing. Nothing and absolutely nothing. He also showed us, radiallahu anhu, that the most noble cause in Islam is the cause to spread the deen of Islam in the earth. This is the most noble effort that one can undertake. Even Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawzi rahimahullah ta'ala says very beautifully in one of his well-known books, and I'll let you go do some homework and find it. He says that da'wah to Allah, calling people to Allah, is more favored in the eyes of Allah and His messengers than even the nawafil acts of ibadah that you may do. More favored in the eyes of Allah and His messenger, because He said, have you not seen that the messengers of Allah gave preference to calling other people to the way of Allah more than they gave preference to the above nawafil acts of ibadah, because they knew that this is what truly was pleasurable in the sight of the one whom they loved. The most noble profession. And Allah very well says it, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ, who can be better than one whose speech is calling to Allah? Or what speech can be better than that which is calling to Allah? He showed us the most noble profession. And He also showed us what the most noble profession can produce if you're sincere. That the most noble profession on this planet can produce results that can change the entire world as we know it, even if we might not see it. Musab ibn Umayr never lived to see the world under the banner of La ilaha illallah, the whole civilized world. He never saw it. But yet, he is gaining all of the rewards for it. He is gaining all of those rewards of what came after the hijrah because of his laying the ground and the seeds for it. So we never know what our efforts for calling people for the sake of Allah, we never know what it can produce. We have no clue. But it has to be sincere. He also taught us and taught our children and our youth that a person who is dedicated to Allah and His Messenger can accomplish the most noble of feats and goals. And that the real attitude of the believer, and this is the final bit of advice we learned from Musab ibn Umayr, is that the real attitude of the believer has to be complete dedication. Complete dedication to Allah and His Messenger to the last breath. Has to be complete dedication to Allah, complete dedication to the Messenger of Allah till our very last breath on this earth. There is no room for giving up. There is no room for slacking off. Because the moment you slack off could be the moment that Allah Azza wa Jalla has written for you to end your life. And that's how you will end your life. You never know. So we have to understand and teach our children that dedication to Allah and His Messenger is utmost above everything else. I don't care what else they do. I don't care. And I remember the last time I was here, I told you something. That if our children grow up with deen, and they are dignified in front of Allah and His Messenger, they have everything. Even if they don't end up possessing anything in this life. Even if they are the most poor person in London. Even if they have to beg in the streets. Even if they have to eat out of garbage bins. I don't care. If they live a life dedicated to Allah and His Messenger, and their last breath is on Tawheed with dedication to Allah and His Messenger, they are the most successful people on the planet. Don't care what they have in this life. But if our children grow up and we don't teach them this dedication and they lose the deen of Allah, or they have half of it, or they have some dedication here and there but they falter here and there, and they die on that faltering, I don't care if they had the greatest degrees from the greatest universities that England can produce, if they had the greatest professions that anyone can have, if they had more money than anyone has ever seen, if they have more possessions, if they have beautiful wives and beautiful children, I don't care. If they die on that faltering way of life, they are losers. They are losers, and they are the worst people that have ever walked the face of this earth. And this is very clear. We have to understand this. We have to teach our children to have dignity. Yes, I teach all the time that we need to dignify these non-Muslims and teach them the deen of Allah because they deserve it. But at the same time, we can't forget to dignify ourselves. We cannot humble ourselves to something that we're not in order to make them greater than they should seem. We give them our place and we take our place. And our place is very clear, is that we're the most favored and honored amongst mankind. Islam is the most honored and favored and only way of life that Allah Azza wa Jalla has legislated. And His believers are the most favored of human beings. And the worst Muslim walking the face of this earth is better than the best disbeliever that's ever walked on it. That I have no doubt about. And our children need to understand this. This is not disrespectful to the non-Muslim because it shows them the honor of the deen. It teaches them the honor of Islam. That you can be the best human being that's ever lived. But if you do not say, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, all of us are better than that. Even the worst of us, who dies on Tawheed, is better than that. This is the dignity that we need to teach our children. This is something that if you teach your children and it gets inside of them, they will walk around with their head up. They'll walk around with dignity. They'll walk around the way Musab ibn Umayr walked around. Even though he didn't have anything, he was a dignified human being. He had the most noble characters. He had the most honorable manners. He had the most beautiful speech. And Allah allowed him to live the most beautiful life and die the most beautiful death. What else could you want for your children? If you want anything else other than that for your children, you are the problem. And I'm telling you very clearly, if you want anything other than your children to live an honorable life in front of Allah and die an honorable death in the sight of Allah, you need to fix yourself so that you can fix your children. We need to learn from these people. These companions' stories stayed in history for us. Allah did not allow them to make it to us, these stories, through such authenticity for no reason. Allah does nothing without a reason. They have made it this far for a reason. But you know, there are people out there that know this. There are people out there right now, non-Muslim, who know what I'm telling you tonight, without a shadow of doubt. And they do everything within their capacity to divert your children away from it. They do everything within their capacity to divert your children away from it. This is why they produce the glitz and glamour life so clearly. This is why they show them. Why do you think rap stars make so much money? Are they that talented? That you can put some words together and make a rhyme and make some noise? And that's a talent worth $40, $50 million a year? Absolutely not. It's because it's a lifestyle that comes along with it. And the attraction of the glitz and glamour that comes along with it. Why do you think football stars get so much money? Why do you think all of these people in these high positions in life are given money that they don't even know what to do with? Because they want to entice you. They want to fool you into looking at that and being beguiled and fooled by it so that you don't even see what's going on around you. And if you have any doubt about that, then go do your homework. Go do your research. Go read a little book called Don't Think of an Elephant. It's a psychology book that teaches you all about reverse psychology that is played on you every single day, and how people get you to think of things that you yourself are trying not to think of purposely. We need to wake up and make these stories known wide and far. We need to teach our children the legacy that they come from, that they're walking in footsteps of some of the greatest human beings to ever walk the face of this earth, that some of the giants of this ummah were young boys and young girls who changed the world forever. If you look at the stories of the companions that did the biggest and baddest things that anyone had ever seen, I will guarantee you that the majority of them, if not the vast majority of them, can be called shabab, youth. All of them could be called youth. Because the Prophet ﷺ understood the value of youth. He understood the value of youth. And Allah Azza wa Jal understood the value of youth. This is why out of all the people who will be given the shade of the throne of Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment, out of all of the people of mankind, there are only 7 characteristics. There are only 7 types of people that you could be that will get there. And one of them is a young man or a youth that grows up worshipping Allah. That fact alone, just a young person who grows up worshipping Allah, is given the shade of the throne of Allah on the day of judgment. How much does Allah love our youth? The Prophet ﷺ also authentically said that Allah laughs at a young man who worships his Rabb. Because He knows how hard being a young man. Allah knows, He created us. He knows the temptations of youth. Therefore He is amused by a young man who is dedicated to Allah. The Prophet ﷺ understood youth. He chose young people to do the most noblest of missions. Musab ibn Umayr is the first and the most blaring of those examples. But the examples go on and on and on and on. Even the life of the most noble companions. Look at Umar radiallahu anhu. Umar in his 20s. In his early 20s, maybe late teens, depending on the most authentic of narrations. Umar as a young man changed the whole atmosphere for the Muslims in Quraysh just by taking shahada. That was it. Was a young man, a person whom we would look at right now and say, young boy. This was Umar the Great. This was Umar the man whom the shaitan wouldn't even approach him on the same road. This is the same Umar who stood in front of all of the Quraysh. When all of the Muslims had migrated and gone to Medina, Umar purposely waited until everybody had left so that he could do something that would make a very bold statement to the Quraysh. He stood at the front of the Kaaba when the Quraysh used to sit in the shade of the Kaaba after Dhuhr, and he looked at all of them and called them by name. Started calling them by name, saying, I know you, I know you, I know you. Me, my name is Umar, and I am about to go make hijrah to Medina, to the city of the Prophet. When every other Muslim had to sneak out, Umar is pointing out the Quraysh one by one, telling them, I'm about to go make hijrah, and you know who I am. If any of you wishes for his mother to become a bereaved mother, and you want your wife to become a widow, and you want children to become orphans, then I suggest you follow me and try to stop me. This young boy stood up and did this in front of the Quraysh. This young boy named Abu Darda, we all know his beautiful story of standing in front of the Kaaba, claiming Tawheed to the world, getting beat down to the fact where the Prophet told him, leave before they kill you. What did he do? He left and went to his tribe and called all of them to Islam. These same thugs, these were the real thugs of the day. Abu Darda's tribe. And what did Abu Darda do? He converted all of them to the deen and then came with all of them back to Mecca and said the same thing. Claimed the Tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jalla and said, okay, why don't you mess with me now? These were real men. These were real men. And I'm not leaving the sisters out, but we can't tackle two things at once. These were real men. And we need to teach our children this. Because the deen of Allah is for men and women. It's not for cowards, boys and girls. It's a deen that teaches them, a boy, how to be a man. It's a deen that teaches a girl how to be a woman. And we need to implement that in our lives. And we need to show that to our children. That the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla needs no apologies. There needs no apologies. We need to apologize for nothing. Nothing. Don't apologize for anything except your own mistakes. The deen of Allah needs no apologies. The deen of Allah only needs for us to get involved and be serious. That's it. Because that's what we're missing now. We have Muslims all over the globe. 2 billion of us. We brag about it all the time. And I'm finished now, 2 minutes. We brag about it all the time. 2 billion Muslims. When did Allah ever care about our numbers? When was Allah ever fascinated by the number of Muslims that existed? Numbers, and who cares? It's the dedication to Allah. Allah wants quality of believers, not quantity. Quantity doesn't matter. The quality has to be there. Allah took a handful, 300 believers who were dedicated to Allah, the best of the best, the cream of the crop, and they overcome insurmountable odds. And then in the Battle of Hunayn, the companions bragged of their numbers. We cannot be defeated today, there's too many of us. Allah showed them very clearly, I don't need your numbers. I need you to be dedicated to me. When you're dedicated to me, I can do the rest. Allah can move mountains. Allah creates. I don't think we understand that at some times. We become so worried about what's going on around us, we forget that Allah is Al-Khaliq. That Allah is the creator. He creates things. And if you ever have any doubt in your mind that you can't wake up tomorrow and Allah have changed the entire world for the benefit of the Muslims, then you doubt your own Rabb. You doubt your own Rabb and your Iman has some deficiency. You could wake up tomorrow in a world that says La ilaha illallah in wholesale. Allah can do it. Easy for Him. Simple for Him. Beyond easy. Allah says, if I wish I could make everybody believe. But Allah is testing us. He is testing us. And we are being tested to the hilt right now. Go all over the world. Look at the condition of the Muslims. Don't let the fancy, posh life of London fool you. Look at the condition of the Muslims. We have some serious problems. And I'm not telling you what I read in a book and read on CNN. This past year I've traveled almost everywhere in the Muslim globe. Since the last time I was with you. I've traveled east to west, north to south, Middle East to Asia. I've been all over. We have the same problem. We're failing the test. We're failing the test miserably because we're becoming too focused by what's going on around us. Too focused on what's going on around us. It doesn't matter what's going on around us. Because the conditions that we live in are set by Allah alone. If you're living in a rough condition, it's because Allah has legislated it to be so because of something that you've done. Because of something that you've done. Because Allah says, I will not change the condition of a people until they change. Meaning that the good condition Allah created you in will not become bad unless something becomes bad in you. And the reverse is the same. I will not reverse that condition until you change what is inside of you. We have to wake up. The change is not going to happen out there. It's not going to happen out there. I'm trying to tell you all that right now. You cannot change your condition by going out there. The change has to happen in here. Has to. It has to. I don't care if all 2 billion Muslims of the world stood up right now and said we've had enough of the oppression, we've had enough of the tyranny, we've had enough of it, we're done. If their hearts were not in favor with Allah, they would never succeed. Never. We would all be humiliated miserably. But if Allah was satisfied with even enough of us, then He could do whatever He wishes with us. He could change our condition. We need to tell our children this. Put their trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, dedicate themselves to Allah and His Messenger, and Allah Azza wa Jal will not only show them a way out, but He will make them a way out. As Allah says in Surah Al-Isra, those who fear Allah, Allah will make for them, create for them a way out, and provide for them from means which they had no idea. So tell them, forget about what's going on out there for right now. Let's fix what's going on in here. Because if we fix what's going on in here, nothing out there is going to make any difference because we're going to be successful. No matter what's going on out there. But if we're always focused on what's going on out there and don't fix what's in here, won't do anything to get worse. So inshallah ta'ala, we can give our children some hope, showing them that they have beautiful examples to follow. Beautiful example to be followed in the life of not only the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the lives of those young men and women who dedicated themselves to this deen, and they changed the whole world as we know it. And if change happens again, and this is not only my statement, but the statement of some senior scholars from all over the world, if change is to happen again, it will begin with the youth. It will happen from the youth. It will. Change began, if you go look through the history of not only the life of the Prophet ﷺ, but all prophets and messengers. It was their youth and the youth that always made the substantial change. It began with the youth, because the Prophet ﷺ said that which rectified the beginning of this ummah is what will rectify the end of this ummah. And what rectified the beginning of this ummah was youth that were dedicated to Allah and His Messenger. And they showed it with their actions. That's what's going to have to happen if we want to see the end rectify itself again. So inshallah ta'ala, I look forward to, hopefully you haven't been too out front and I actually will get an invitation back inshallah. But I have to be honest with you, I didn't spend 4 hours on 4 trains taking an excursion all over the United Kingdom to come down here and water things down for you. Came here to tell you the truth, so that perhaps somebody can change, and that person can spark a change in this community that will indeed spark another change that can change everything, inshallah. So if I have done so, I have done my job, and the reward from that and the praise for that belongs to Allah alone. But if I have faulted and made mistakes, which is quite surely the case, then it is from myself and my own shortcomings and lack of knowledge, and I ask you to forgive me for it now, so that I don't have to ask you to forgive me for it on the day of judgment, inshallah. وأقول قول هذا واستغفر لكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم وأخوان دعوان والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Oh, and outside, as you all know, I always come, I bring my DVDs. I have produced some new ones. All of them now we're producing in HD. because now we have a studio, alhamdulillah, we're doing things, trying to do things the right way. So there's some new productions outside, inshallah, please go out there and get them. They're 10 pounds each, and no, the DVD doesn't cost 10 pounds, but the 10 pounds is what I put on it so that I can continue to do this. I continue to make DVDs, send them out, spread them, continue to put on these TV stations that are multi-million-dollar a year projects, and this work continues to go forward. So come out and get them. All of them are just for this masjid, and that's it. So you take them all, inshallah ta'ala, and please support with whatever you can, because all these proceeds go for this work to continue to spread on. And I'm not trying to make my work spread on. We're creating enterprises and situations to where when I'm gone, our youth have something they can involve themselves in. They have a platform ready for them. They have a position ready for them. So if they want to get involved in this noble work, they can do it honorably and professionally, inshallah ta'ala. That's my only goal. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair, Yusha Evans. Before we open the floor for Q&A, maybe I'd like to give us just a snippet for about 1 minute about the television stations and the dawah that is involved in North America. And that's for that reason, that's why we are doing this collection. Please donate generously, Jazakumullah khair. Just 1 minute, Jazakumullah.
Well, I told you some of the projects when I was last here. Alhamdulillah, in the last 2 years, we opened up one fully functioning satellite television station in America that is broadcasting the truth about Islam to the best of our capacities, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in English, all over North America. All over North America. And it's on, and the reach is 500,000 people a day. That's the outreach that it reaches out to. Over 500,000 people see this every single day. And the numbers are staggering at how many people are watching. I also started another project, because the Guidance TV project is for non-Muslims, directly for non-Muslims. I created another project, alhamdulillah, by the ni'mah of Allah, called One Ummah TV, which is going to be a project that is focused on educating Muslims and our youth, especially. It is a global project that is viewable online. You can go to oneummatv.com. You can, here in America, I mean, if you guys start getting those smart TVs, they started selling smart TVs here now, yeah? The ones that are connected to the internet, that have applications. And there's something in America called Roku Box and Boxy and Western Digital. Whenever that stuff becomes more worldwide, we're on that as well. And it's viewable on your iPhone. It's viewable on your Android. You can go to the oneummatv.com website and get the app for watching it on your iPhone, Android or iPad or whatever platform you can have. And this one is for our Muslim audience and for our youth. And it is basically a TV station that travels with me. I take it everywhere I go. I just didn't bring it here this time because we're doing workshops and it's not the platform for it. But it's a studio I take with me, and we broadcast live on location in HD wherever I go. Because everything we try to put out is quality. We're not caring about the quantity, it's about the quality. So we put out everything in HD, inshallah. So whenever I'm able to broadcast HD, we broadcast it HD live with live Q&A. I broadcast live 3 times a week with live programming where people can call in and deal with issues. It's not a fatwa Q&A show because I can't give them. It's a show so we can discuss issues and bring up relevant topics that our youth are dealing with, that they don't want to come and ask their imam, or they don't want to come and ask their mother or father. They can ask me anonymously and I can deal with it live on the air, inshallah. So that's what we're trying to do. And if I can't broadcast live, we record it and then rebroadcast it the same day. So it's either live or almost live, one or the other, inshallah. So these are projects that we're putting on, and these 2 projects are roughly about $3 million a year to put on. And the reason why we don't even think about the funds is because that's from the hands of Allah. Rizq was written by Allah 50,000 years before Allah created anything. That we're not worried about. We want to create a platform where our youth have something to be proud of. Where if they want to get a job later on, we will have a job for them. If they want to be involved in da'wah, we can involve them in da'wah the right way, professionally. They can come and get a job. They can be hired, professional, doing work that is pleasing to Allah, and as well as earn a living. So that if they want to do da'wah, they don't have to do da'wah at the sacrifice of their family and their children, and living in the most slum of conditions, can barely put food in their mouth or their family's mouth. That's not the role that the da'i should have. The da'i and the du'at have always had a noble role in this deen. If you doubt that, go back in our history and look. There have always been people legislated under the Islamic State to do da'wah, and these people were taken care of. These people were given honorable positions, and they didn't have to worry about anything other than the job that they were trained and good at doing. So that's something that another legacy I want to leave for this world, because I'm tired of hearing people involved in da'wah being questioned about what is your real job. If someone tells you their job is da'wah, they don't have time for anything else. Let me tell you that right now, because da'wah is consisting of about 7 professional fields that you need to be good at. You need to be good at about at least 7 professional fields to be a good da'wah. And it takes a lifelong of dedication and a lot of work and a lot of training and professionalism. So I'm tired of that atmosphere of being asked all the time, well, what is your real job? It's just very funny. So I'm trying to change that attitude so that if people understand that your work is da'wah, this is a person that you need to give some attention to. This is a person you need to put some support behind. This is a person we need to put in an honorable position within our community, because he's the one that's going to change things before anybody else. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
On your way out, I'm going to give you my CV. Yes, okay, just take about 2 or 3 questions before we stop for Abdullah.
You mentioned about Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. Different Ja'far. There's Ja'far who passed away in the battle of Mu'ta, and you're wondering. I'm confused. Which one?
Repeat the question again.
I'm wondering. You said about Ja'far ibn. I don't know if
it wasn't Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. No, it wasn't Ja'far. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib died much.
And he died in the battle of Mu'ta.
Yeah, he died much later on.
Yeah, battle of Mu'ta.
Yes.
And this one is called, what's the other name?
Ja'far. Trying to remember the last name. Ja'far. Hamza. I may have even misspoken. Might not even have been a Ja'far. I can do that sometimes. If I misspoken, I misspoken. Sometimes I can get incidents mixed up. I'm apt to quote a name out of place at many occasions. Inshallah.
We have a question from the sisters here. Is it better for a sister to get married or to study her deen? And the other part is that the sister here, she's being in conflict between a brother wants to get married to her, but she just wants her to be a mother and a wife, and she wants to go and study Islamic studies. So please help. It's a call for help.
Okay. There should be no real conflict, and there should not be a choice between getting married or studying. That shouldn't be a choice that a sister should have to make. A sister who leaves on her own should leave on her own in the company of her husband, because the sister alone in today's world is not okay. It's not okay, sisters. It's not. You need to have a husband to protect you, to be by your side, to defend you, to keep you away from all of this fitna that is focused heavily on our sisters today. And your husband should be someone who pushes you to excel, pushes you to study more. If your husband doesn't teach you, then you did not choose a very good husband. These are things that you should know well up front, because a husband should be concerned about the welfare of his wife, not only feeding her and clothing her, but the welfare of her akhirah. That she should be taught, she should be knowledgeable, she should go forth and be able to teach her children properly. And if the only thing her husband wants is for her to cook and clean and take care of the children, sister, you probably don't have a home and children yet. When you have a home and children, that's pretty much a majority of the work is cooking, cleaning, taking care of the children. If a man didn't have a woman to do that at home, he would be incapacitated, basically. And it's worth about 4 salaries of any professional job. And one thing that our sisters always talk about, but the sister should not be discouraged from being involved. If she wants to go to the masjid and involve herself in Islamic studies, her husband should not prevent her to do so. If she wants to be involved in da'wah for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal with her free time, husband should not stop her from doing so. But for sure, sisters, one of the greatest things that you can do for these young, for these next generation of du'at is raise them up right. Raise our children correctly. Because if we are having children coming up, and the generation of youth that are coming up today is a little bit weak, a little bit too watered down, as I'm trying to be nice about it, then sisters, you're going to catch the first blame for it. You're going to catch the first blame for it because you were the first institute of learning for our children. The majority of mannerism that they will get from you. They will get from your mannerism because that is going all over the place. Here, there, back and forth. He's home sometime to teach his children, then he's out if he's doing his job. You are the person whom your children are going to learn from more than anything. This is why Jannah is at the feet of mothers, not at the foot of the father. The father's running all over the place. The mothers have to be responsible for taking care of the children and raising them up correctly. This is a big responsibility, sisters. And if you look at it as a burden, please change that thought process. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, if a woman, I'm trying to remember exactly how many things it was. If a woman were to please her Lord with her mandatory acts of worship, and she were to be pleasing to her husband, and she were to meet a death where Allah is pleased with her and her husband is pleased with her, then she will be told, enter through the gates of Jannah by any gate that you choose. Any gate that you wish. That's it. Just pick a gate and go in. Jannah is yours. So, sisters, realistically, Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you a huge responsibility that comes with great reward. As well as Allah has given a man a huge responsibility that comes with a great reward. Neither one are the same, and neither one are in any aspect making one lord over the other. We each have our own position, our own means, within our own capacity. And we must, inshallah, strive to do them. Because if the man and the woman are doing the same thing, there's going to be problems. There's going to be problems. And just because a man does it, sisters, doesn't mean it's the greatest thing in the world to do. I don't know what changed in the world to where if a man does it, that's better to do than what I'm supposed to do. Nothing makes what we do so great, believe me. There's nothing in the world that makes doing what a man can do any greater. And that's an idea that unfortunately has been thrown into our sisters' understanding and the women of the West understanding. That if a man can do it, I can do it. If you want to be equal to a man, or if you want to be equal to a man, that's something you have to take up with someone with much greater authority than anybody walking on the face of the earth. So inshallah, sister, you can find a husband that lets you excel in your deen, encourages you to do good, pushes you for da'wah, but also gives you the opportunity to become a mother and a wife pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah knows best.
Now, Abbas, please insert your question and think.
How long can a sister go to Asia?
Sorry?
How long can a sister who wants to get married?
How long what?
That wanted to get married, and she's been taking the right away guilty because of Ayatul Dunya. They don't base the evidence to what they did see or what they see not say. And the mom wanted to compromise with that life relevant to someone she wants to get married, not to look into the good. How long can she can compromise to that?
We didn't understand the question. Maybe inshallah if you can come later on and answer.
Over here.
Afterward, inshallah, I'll talk to you. Inshallah. Catch me after the salah.
There are several questions here, but because the time for Salah is almost coming up, how do mature women get married when the majority of Muslim men want to marry very young women or many young girls? I think you should have spoken about marriage. So maybe inshallah we'll try and make the next question, the next session to be about marriage. Today's session was about Musab ibn Umayr, which inshallah we thank the speaker for his diligent way of presenting, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward him for coming all the way, inshallah, and put it in Mizan Hasanat. Please don't forget we're doing collection for the projects of Yusha Evans in America, in particular his TV stations and his da'wah work. We're still collecting, and sisters as well are collecting, and on the way out don't forget to get a CD. Jazakumullahu khair.